Since 2014, the Omaha Municipal Land Bank has worked to transform distressed properties into productive space.
All of the properties are vacant. The nonprofit land bank has to deal with back taxes, demolition liens, and weed and litter cleanup. And of course, that can take up and make buying the properties a bit pricey.
John Chapman had a one-on-one interview with the new director of the land bank today to get her thoughts on the agency's future.
Leslie Smith is the executive director of the Omaha Land Bank. She's been on the job less than a month.
Based on our strategic plan, we need to get out into the community. We need to be more transparent. We need to align with existing efforts.
But she's already hit the ground running. Leslie has experience helping to grow the land bank in Memphis, Tennessee. But she said she wants to learn about Omaha and the needs of the community.
So I do believe that it is very hard for me to come from the outside in and tell people what they need, what I would like for them to see. I would like to see the community get their needs realized to help transform those vacant properties into the assets that they help to advise.
The Omaha Municipal Land Bank owns more than 300 properties, most of them located in North Omaha. Some of the properties are ready right now to be developed. There are other spots where officials will need the neighbors to buy into the idea of improving their neighborhood.
I would love to work first in the North Omaha area. I would love to get to know the people, get involved, establish a presence so we can kind of build trust, develop meaningful and impactful relationships. And then I would like to make sure that they are knowing how to access the properties in the land bank.
The Omaha Land Bank is working to transform properties into assets for the community, grow productive green space, create affordable housing, something that's in short supply across the country.
I think that if we could have more developers, small-scale developers, if people of North Omaha can do that, they can build generational wealth. It's the path of wealth building here in America.
On your side in Omaha, I'm John Chapman, 6 News.
Smith says she is excited to get to work and adds that the previous leadership at the land bank built a strong foundation and a good staff.